What's up, everybody? Party Science here, vlogging with the one and only DJ Diego. Bro, thank you for being here today.
My
I
man, thank you for
appreciate
having
it.
me. Thank you for having me.
You
It's
know,
a pleasure being here. Pleasure doing this with you and getting to, you know, giving people the opportunity to get to know me. People to also view some other content outside of what they regularly view. So it's good to be here.
bro, I'm happy because you've always been very consistent at like looking at my stuff. Because we've been when I met you at that DJ get together,
Yeah.
you were out of
Wow.
everybody, bro. Like out of everybody, you were one of the most laid back people because we were sitting there shooting the shit while you were mixing, and then
Yeah.
I was mixing. We're just kind of like talking, and not to hate on that get together, but it was more every DJ was kind of like I'm the shit DJ energy, and like I get it. I get it. You know what I mean? Like I've been in the industry. I understand it. But you were so laid back. I was like, I got to know more about him. Like, what's up? What's going on? So I know we've talked in the past,
Hmm.
but I'll probably ask you some questions from that time again, just to kind of
Yeah.
get it for the actual episode. So I mean, like, how'd you get into DJing, bro? Like, how did that start?
Yeah. So DJing for me is more of a personal opportunity for me to showcase my personality as well as a opportunity to just be thankful to not to get religious or anything, but thankful to God and thankful to life. Growing up, it was very tough growing up in Colombia. Grew up in a very poor home, single mom raising three kids. Got to see her raise all three of us, and she's done an amazing job. She's always gonna be an inspiration to me, past, present, and future. Um, Growing up was tough. We went through a dark period of time when we were very poor in Colombia, almost considered homeless. Um, Had to spend days, nights out in the streets trying to even just come up with at least $4 at the time to be able to put together, just a bowl of rice with scrambled eggs to be able to have dinner. So, uh, DJing for me, it's a combination of all things in life being put together and being able to showcase those components of my life, whether it's a 1 hour set, half-hour set, 4 hour set altogether, and showcase that to people. I think um, in today's world and day and age, people crave authenticity. They want to get to know people. They want to know what's so special about you. Because everybody can be a DJ. Anybody can spin music. Anybody can push a button, press a cool effect to make it sound really cool, right?
Mm.
But what's so special about you? How does the music that you select speak about who you are? And that's where DJing for me has always been. Uh, that's why I've never really wanted to go full time into DJing because I want to be able to make it part time to be able to have parts of the week where I can think about how can I bring this aspect of my life in this weekend so that people get to know a little bit more about who I am as a person. So it's always been just showcasing me, whether it's the times that I lived in Colombia, surviving cancer, uh, or whether it's been kind of adjusting to life here in the United States because you come from a third world country, life over there is very different from here. You have to adapt to a different culture, different slangs, different sayings, different language. You sit here in the United States and you're at a pot of like a melting pot. You have a lot of cultures from all around the world, so it's important to get to know that. And that's another thing about DJing. It brings the whole world together. Everybody can speak music, and that's something that I've always appreciated about DJing. And whoever I can connect with and help them out or be a part of what they're doing, definitely will take the first stab at it for sure.
Right, right. So when you look at how you grew up to where you are now in DJing, what lessons do you think you've learned through that process to where like now DJing? I don't know about you, but like if you go through some hard shit, everything else kind of seems easy. Then in the sense of like what other people who maybe haven't gone through a similar hardship may view it. So like, how do you think your childhood helped you to understand like how to be a good DJ and like tailor your sets from like your emotions on a weekly basis to bring it on like you know Friday Saturday night.
Yeah, yeah. Great question. I think. in that aspect of things, it's always been my life has always been adjust and conquer, and it's the same exact thing when it comes to DJing.
Mm.
Adjust and conquer. You know, you may have a room full of 100 people, and out of that 100 people, there might be a pocket of 10 people that are not dancing,
Mm.
while everybody else on the dance floor is dancing. How to adjust and conquer so that everybody on the dance floor feels so included, right? And so it's the same exact thing, uh, you know, whether it's in life, whether it's DJing, whether it's whatever it is. Um, you know, my past has helped me do that, adjust, conquer, deliver, be able to continue pouring um, good energy and great vibes out there.
Mm. So the attack and concert concept is like when you see a group of, you know, maybe the people who just came to drink, they want to mingle at the table versus hit the dance floor.
Yep.
You adjust and say, all right, like I'm not looking to necessarily tailor my set for them. I'm trying to do it for the people who came here specifically to dance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, when you're looking at a dance floor, all right, so I have like a method of how I DJ in terms of trying to read a crowd.
Yep.
So how do you go about reading a crowd?
For me, it's not to sound sexist, but if women are on the dance floor, everybody else joins after,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a younger crowd of women, whether it's an older crowd of women, everybody else starts to feel that energy. And women tend to have a sense of really high energy and drive when it comes to music. Uh, and that in itself becomes contagious. That's where everybody starts to join in, and that's where eventually you have a really big party. So, how do you connect with women? Speaking to some of their favorite artists, maybe take them back to a certain time period that they might have enjoyed, or maybe even just speaking, you know, today's music. I mean, you know, you look at a crowd, everybody's gonna want Sabrina Carpenter or you know, Chappelle Roan, Taylor Swift, even Katy Perry these days still hits.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, you look at your crowd, you look at roughly at what they look like in age, and you connect immediately with them. And if you are an open format DJ, which by the way, shout out to all my open format DJs out there because it's not easy to be able to cater to so many different genres. If you're an open format DJ, you can adjust and conquer really fast. If you are one type of DJ that's really focused on one type of scenery, might be a little bit more difficult for you, but it doesn't mean that you can't conquer it.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's can you read the room based on who's there? How old are they? You know. So yeah, absolutely. Now, so let's say you're gonna spin obviously tonight, and then you know we've got the boats and we do all these different things.
Oh yeah.
You know? So for yourself, is there a certain crowd you like to DJ for, or is there, or do you prefer like mixing it up to keep yourself fresh? Like, what's your thought in terms of like how you progress as a DJ?
So preferably for me, I like a mixed crowd. I like a crowd where I can see a lot of different cultures, because then it pushes me mentally to be able to not just necessarily think top 40 and maybe some 80s in between, but it pushes me to think deeper, question my knowledge about music, and I love that challenge, especially when you are front and center of whether it's a boat party, whether it's a wedding, whether it's a small bar, whatever it may be, you're front and center, and so that exhilarating kind of energy, that thriller of being questioned, has always been something that I thrive on, and so being able to have a mixed crowd, whether it's you know your pocket of Latinos, your pocket of African Americans, your pocket of Europeans, or even just your common day American today. It's amazing to be able to be kind of questioned like that and be able to cater to everybody and
Right.
have that energy explode in the dance floor. It's amazing to have that. So that's
Yeah.
my favorite type of crowd.
Yeah. There's something to the stress that comes with that at the end of the set. Like
Yeah.
it's very satisfying.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you know, people like a lot of DJs just and it's not to throw shade at them or anything, but a lot of DJs at times focus too much on being transactional and focus too much on looking at the screen, making sure that the you know that the grids are matching, the beats are matching and whatnot, but they're not necessarily reading the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the times when you miss reading the crowd, you miss reading also the staff that's working with you. Because that staff that's working with you is also part of that environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you miss that, you know, you might be a phenomenal DJ. You might be able to blend everything in between and whatnot. But at the end of the day, if you miss that, they don't feel like you made them important enough for you to be able to come back.
Mm.
And that's always necessary, especially in this type of business. In today's economy where it's so ever changing that people want to be able to remember your name and say, I remember that dude. I remember that dude.
Mm.
I wanna see him come back. I wanna work with him again.
Mm.
Where do I find him again if you know if I no longer work here? So it's necessary again just to be able to read the crowd, understand the establishment that you're working with, understand the type of personnel that you're working with. Um, yeah, it's so there's a lot of components that we don't think of it as today's common Joe or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But you know, for DJs, there's a lot of pressure, and for me, I love pressure. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yep,
yeah. I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you, bro.
yep, yep.
Yeah. So now, how long did it take you to get that mindset of like how to read the room? Like, how many? Is there a certain fuck up you had during the
Oh,
process, or like, is there a certain moment where you're like, okay, this is how? Because I messed it up here. This is like, how did it get to that point for you?
there's been I'm not if there's any DJ out there that thinks that their whole career has been perfect, you're full of shit.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna deny that. I've had so many fuck ups in my life DJing, um, that some of them I look back at them and I'm like, why did you even think that, right? For example, I remember very vividly, still up to this day, one of my very first gigs was at this Spanish place right in the Chelsea Riviera line called Plaza Garibaldi. And at the time, it was a very mixed crowd of Colombians and Mexicans. And people often think cumbia is just cumbia. But those two cultures are very proud of their cumbia. So I remember the DJ that hired me, he was like, oh, you're Colombian, just drop some cumbia, whatever, it'll all blend in. Well, not so much when I was playing some cumbia that some Mexicans kind of took offense to. And yeah, when I look at the crowd and everybody's just looking at me like ready to give me the middle finger, that's when I realized I gotta do something quick. I gotta be quick on my feet and kind of transition something in between. Was able to get there, but yeah, the staff and everybody else at the end of the night reminded me, dude, you should know more than anybody that cumbia is something very cultural to their descendancies, and if you're not willing to study the genre and not willing to educate yourself, don't come back.
Right.
That was a huge realization to me. Mind you, I was 17 years old,
Fresh. Yeah.
teenage punk, not knowing what to do and just thinking that reggaeton was everything.
Uh huh.
Might have been at the time, but you also DJing at a different night where it's an older crowd. It's a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
more catered to tropical vibes and cultural. And yeah, that was a massive fuck up. I still remember because when I went out, my brother shows up to the venue, goes to pick me up, and people are looking at me like ready to throw hands at me, and it was quite the wake up call.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
I've never had that moment, but I'm sure that you look at that and you're like, damn, music is that intense.
Is that intense? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was. Up to this day, I still, I drive by the building, what the former building looks like, and that flashback comes back, and I'm like, oof, how did I not even pick up on that?
Yeah.
Considering that I love cumbia myself, so yeah.
Yeah. The early days. The
Oh
early
yeah,
days.
oh yeah.
Now, what is a moment that you think was like it sits in your mind? We have certain DJ moments where we're like, that crowd was the best crowd I've ever had. Like,
Oh,
like what's a best crowd you've ever had and like best reaction you remember, like one of the top reactions you like to remember.
sure. So I've been very fortunate and blessed to network and be connected with a lot of the DJs in the city. They put you in different venues, different atmospheres, and different crowds. One of the biggest blessings that I've had is being able to work on the Spirit of Boston. So shout out to DJ Big L. connecting me with the right people, trusting me to be there. Um, One of the absolutely most amazing crowds I still remember up to this day was a Harvard graduation. Um, it was one of their offshoot schools that Harvard has, and I was partnered up with um, a previous DJ of the company, DJ Sincere, and him and I had never worked together, barely even knew each other. When you hired on the boat,
Yeah.
you're assigned to a certain
A deck.
a
Yeah.
certain deck,
Yeah.
right? You cater into a certain crowd, but you never working back to back with a DJ. This was the very first opportunity that I remember of that year getting a back to back. And he's a super experienced DJ. He has a huge, brilliant mindset as to how he caters a vibe. And I have a very different vibe and energy that I like to carry. Um, and from the moment that this crowd got in, you know, he tells me, I wanna open up the night. I'm like, do you think? I'm used to opening up, especially in those environments. I was like, okay, do you think? And half hour later, he's like, "No, we're gonna go back to back. We're gonna switch every half hour." I was like, "Are you sure about that? We've never worked together." He's like, "I'm sure about that." When a DJ is that certain, it makes you kind of like, it gets in your head, right? It's like, oh, this guy's like very comfortable,
Mm-hmm,
very
mm-hmm,
like very knowledgeable. He knows what he's doing. How do I complement that energy?
mm-hmm.
Because what if his vibe is completely different from mine? What if I empty up the dance floor, right? All those things start to come in mind. Uh, and one of the very first things
How
that
old were you when this was going down?
um, I want to say I was 27, 28.
Okay.
So about 6, 5 years ago.
Okay.
Um, and this was pre-COVID.
Okay.
Man,
So you were gonna go back to back. He was confident.
yeah, we were gonna go back to back and all that stuff. People are coming in, and it's all types of backgrounds. They're coming up to the DJ booth and they're like, "Yo, play some of the new Bad Bunny album. Yo, play some of this album. Yo, bring me back to the Pitbull era. Like, yo, bring me back to like Calabria kind of energy."
Uh-huh.
And he's thinking to himself like, "Y'all don't even know me. I'm about to take you there."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at like, oh my god, I'm getting too many song requests. Oh my god, leave me alone, leave me alone. I barely just thinking of a few ideas, like leave me alone. And he's like, do you think, man? Do you think I've seen things about you that I know you're gonna kill it? We ended up going back to back to back. That second deck on the Spirit of Boston, I thought for sure was gonna cave in. There was not 1 second of the 3 hour cruise where the crowd was not jumping.
Nice.
All the second deck and that third deck that's like overlooking at you, it's going like this. The whole boat is going like this. In the middle of the harbor,
Bro, that's the best.
middle of the harbor, the whole boat is going like this, and both of us DJs are going like. Like looking around, like trying to like twist knobs and like trying to select songs, and you like you just bouncing everywhere. Oh my god, it was the funniest thing, like visually wise, but energy wise, oh my god, that crowd will never be forgotten. It was, I want to say it was about 400, maybe a little bit less,
That's a good size.
of a crowd. Not one person left disappointed. Everybody came over and was like, like shaking hands with us when we ended the cruise.
Yeah.
It took a solid 45 minutes to empty the boat because nobody wanted to leave.
Yeah.
Nobody. We were getting shouted out like encore, encore, like one more song, and the staff was on that energy as well. Everybody in the staff was like, "Oh my god, what a cruise we just had!" The managers are all coming up. They're like, "How do you guys feel about going like another half hour?" And then eventually whoever contracted things were like, no, like no more, no more, no more, because everybody's riled up. Like, we need to get them back on the buses. They're gonna want to stay in the city, and we can't do that. And oh my god, it was insane energy, absolutely insane energy. You crave moments like that, and as a DJ, especially if you're developing social media and whatnot, um, you're looking at it and you're like, oh my god, all these people are gonna start to want to know like where I'm at
Yeah.
more often. And I I kid you not, out of that night, I got at least 35 new followers. There was
Nice.
no question in my mind.
Nice.
No question. And a lot of those people still follow me and still show up to some of my events. Um, I'm sure that for him, he picked up a bunch of followers too because he was amazing. Amazing.
Nice.
I mean, I learned about a couple of genres that I never even knew
Yeah.
existed.
Yeah.
And he was both of us energies on the mics as well. It was fantastic. It's one of those days that definitely neither one of us would definitely forget.
That's the best. Bro.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the best.
I mean, put it this way: when you are barely just putting in the very first 10 seconds of Pitbull's Fireball, and nobody wants to hear the song, they just want to go encore. That tells you the type of energy
Yeah.
that was going on. That was absolutely insane.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love those nights, bro.
Oh,
those
God.
are the best.
Yeah.
Those are the best.
Yeah.
Now, what are you trying to grow in? Like, as DJs, I find that we go through these phases of we play a genre we haven't necessarily played in a while because we get a club or something and, that we haven't done, so we get really good at it. And then once we get good at it, we kind of just we've got the folders, we got all the music ready if we hit that situation. So, like, what do you do to keep yourself fresh? Like, how do you rotate your music? Like, what's your thoughts behind that type of stuff?
So me personally, any DJ that likes
knock, my love?
Yeah, sorry.
The remotes are in the living room.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, they're in the
Sorry.
living room. Yeah, they should be right on the shelf. Let me know if they're not.
Sorry.
My son asked for the VR, and that's when I looked a second ago. I was like, they're not in here. I left them in the living room. Yeah, so, like, what's your thought process behind, music, keeping yourself up to date? Like, how do you go about that?
Yeah, so for me, it's very important to not get in that mindset of comfortability.
Mm-hmm.
Be comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. It's one of my theories. So when I'm looking for music, I'm I'm booking myself at least 2 to 3 hours of my day to be focused on just music, whether it's Latino music, whether it's dance hall, Afro beats, catered to a certain culture, whether it's these top 40s. I want to be able to do that. So I navigate through a lot of music pools, SoundCloud, especially because SoundCloud is one of those pages that DJs are pouring a lot of new things into. So I definitely navigate the SoundCloud aspect of things. I go exploring for whatever type of genre, whether it's EDM, whether it's 80s or whatever. Um, and I launch myself into those 2 to 3 hours, dive hard into it, and if I'm looking at songs, I'm like, oh my god, how do I not have that song? Like that song used to hit. That's where my mindset goes to. So that's how I update my folders, try to freshen myself up. Then if I have a little bit more time, I try to work about an hour and a half, where I can use those new music ideas that I found, or new songs, uh, and try to blend them into a mix. Try to
Right.
get comfortable with how they sound, when do they fit in and whatnot. So I always encourage DJs, manage your time very effectively and be comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, because if you are way too comfortable, you're doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's what's always been in the back of my head, what I always tell people. And if they're feeling too comfortable, they're not studying the genres enough.
Right. It's almost the days you go in too cocky are usually the days you end up having a bad set.
Oh,
or a
absolutely.
rough set, or you rely on tried and trues because you're just not reading, or you're not getting what you're looking for.
Absolutely, absolutely. Uh, you know, there's a saying where, especially here in Boston, you have such a very diverse background of partygoers, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, people often think, oh, if you're a Latino DJ, you should kill the Latino crowd. There's a lot of Latino DJs that don't know how to cater to a Latino crowd. Just like there's a lot of top 40 DJs that don't necessarily know how to play top 40.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so never question your abilities to be able to fulfill a certain type of crowd. Just continue to push yourself, and again, going back to what I said earlier, be comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. Because sometimes even your worst set might have been the best one. You might have absolutely rocked your crowd. Your transitions might have not been great, but the crowd was having a ball and a half. That's all that matters.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like I've had DJs who are like, they'll hate on people who use sync buttons. Now I don't use sync buttons, right? And I understand it, but it's a hard hate. I've seen it so many times over and over and over, and I'm like, hey man, you can say whatever you want about the button, but I've met DJs who, even though they can't blend, they know how to read the crowd.
Yeah.
And I've met DJs who know how to blend and don't use the sync button, but they can't read the
They
crowd.
can't read the crowd.
So
Yep.
it's not about just, taking away from their credit. It's who can genuinely take that crowd to where that crowd wants to be throughout the night.
Yep.
So for yourself, when you see people coming in, right? Or is there a certain way of you're reading the crowd? Like for me, the boats, they tend to vary, but it's pretty consistent in the sense of you're probably at some point going to get like a late 20s to a 40s, 50-year-old crowd. That's what I've seen pretty consistently there. When you're watching that type of crowd come in, how are you breaking it down? Like, what songs are you thinking, and like, how are you playing it?
So for me, it's very important to read the setting in which you're in. If you're in a boat, most likely the weather's going to be nice, right? Especially in the summer. Make them feel like they're on a boat and enjoying the weather. So where do I go? I go for tropical kind of vibes, right? Whether it's modern dance hall, whether it's a little bit of Latin Afro beats to kind of keep that tropical mindset in the background. Go somewhere like that. Maybe even, heck, usually most of the time people that are DJing are so focused on being like a certain BPM when they start.
Yeah, I went through that phase, but
I personally
I
never
didn't stay
understood
there.
that
Yeah.
energy. Maybe call me stubborn or narrow-minded, whatever you want to call me. That's fine. But for me, it's important if you're catering energy, the crowd's gonna pick up on that energy. That's what you're here for. They didn't hire you because of your connections for the event that you're about to party with. They hired you because they know that you can cater differently and take them there. So most of the times, like I said, tropical vibe in that example, or maybe kind of activate that party mode nice and early, kind of have that party energy in the background. So like if you are at a college bar, what are college kids listening to these days? Whether it's not necessarily starting with like the hottest song of the year. Don't necessarily do that.
Yeah, yeah.
You would hate to have that DJ that starts with, the bangers right off the bat.
That's
But
usually an inexperienced DJ.
yeah, but do a little offshoot off of that. 2000s is one of like the best moments in music ever experienced so far with anybody. Whether it's somebody in their 60s or whether it's somebody right now in their 20s. 2000s music will always be there. So if it's just your regular like college bar, Sean Kingston still hits, Justin Bieber still hits, Justin Timberlake still hits, Usher, Usher's like what song what crowd doesn't enjoy that song?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So
it's like I keep that one in the bank for like how's the crowd, like either to bring it at the highest level possible or to bring it out of bad energy.
Yeah.
That's a great song.
and even like even mixes like EDM remixes of some offshoot songs that were kind of slow, but with EDM like give it that flair. Don't be afraid to do it. Again, it's just more of cater to who you are and who your crowd is. Don't cater as to who taught you how to DJ and the things that you need to be tactical on. Because when you're too technical, you're not having fun.
Yeah, yeah. Big O said something to me that I took to heart. He's like, if you're having a bad time behind the DJ set, you should still be smiling. Because
Yes.
they're looking at you, and if you're not having fun, they don't think they're gonna have fun.
Oh, yeah.
So now, when you were when you were growing up, what do you think? Like when you look back at it, what are some of the biggest lessons you took away that helped you be open minded the way you are in terms of how you read situations?
I think my biggest lessons were the hardships that we endured as a family, as myself as a teenager trying to fit in here. Um, it was very important to understand those moments in order to be able to say later on in life I can I can use those moments to then drift away to be able to find a solution to complications like that. So um, I very vividly remember being 13 years old, immigrating here to this country, recovering from leukemia, looking frail as possible. Um, and I remember fitting in a town where there was not a lot of people in my culture. I was maybe 1% of that culture. Um, and so it was really, really hard to fit in. Really, really hard to fit in. But it was important for me to analyze and adjust. So I analyzed how the kids around my age, kind of dress, what they like, their lifestyle, what they like to do. Um, you know, 13 years old, you're addicted to probably Disney Channel, Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
So for me personally, growing up in Colombia, you're not used to seeing pretty blonde girl with green eyes on the screen like Hannah Montana. So, being 13 years old, that's how I picked up on the language.
Right.
Watching
Yeah, yeah.
Hannah Montana consistently and listening to Gemma 94.5.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Those, I mean, yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
how I learned English. And I realized like, wow, there's a lot of similarities that I actually have with these people. There's a lot of interests that I have that because I've been so focused and thinking that I'm not in Colombia, I'm not actually having fun. I'm not having fun with this type of people that are basically just one of the same. They just speak a different language and dress differently.
Mm.
And that was part of the adjustment. That was part of the adjustment. Part of realizing that I needed to kind of going back to what I said earlier, adjust and conquer a little bit. So when I go through phases where I'm like very stubborn, and thinking like, I should be doing a lot more to open up for my culture. I go back to being open format more again,
Mm.
because then with open formalities, there is energies that are there that not necessarily transition to some cultural aspects,
Mm.
but that generate ideas, and that's where for me it's always been there.
Mm. Right. So you've looked at how you grew up in that adjust and conquer mindset
Mm-hmm.
to pretty much the whole, like, I know I kind of asked it before, so it's like a repeat almost,
Yeah, yeah.
but the way you've really dealt with coming here, not knowing the language, learning the language, then creating the circle of friends that you wanted,
Mm-hmm.
getting to the job that you wanted, like doing all these things, it all came from like, how do I get to the point where I can be good in this area?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So I came here and didn't speak English either. So I'm curious to know, like, I do the whole ESL classes, like that whole deal. Um, were there any moments when you didn't speak English where, like, you met someone who still understood what you were trying to say and you could tell, like, they were working with you? Or, like, what were you seeing? Because for me, it had its moments of, like, the teachers might try to understand you, but the kids, they can be vicious, So for yourself, when you say it was difficult, like, what's some of the things that you kind of went through?
So I went through two different type of things. I migrated to not to be, I guess, culturalist maybe, but I went to a very white America town. Right, they got their traditions, things that they liked, and their culture already in place. So everybody often wonder, where is Colombia? Are you from the District of Columbia, like Washington D.C., or are you from like the Columbia brand of clothing? Right? Nobody knew where Colombia was, and if they knew where Colombia was, unfortunately, because in society we do have um, the very unfortunate part of things where we tend to generalize
Okay.
a certain culture. So I did deal with, Colombia, Pablo Escobar. So you do a lot of blow, right?
Right.
And you know, when you hear those type of things, it's a huge knockout blow for you,
Mhm,
whether you like it or not. You know, you can deflect at the moment, but it still sits in the back of your mind,
mhm.
regardless.
That's what they associate you with.
Yeah, so I went through those moments, and I went through the moments as well where again going back to the town that I grew up in, they had one Spanish teacher, and that Spanish teacher, you know, learned the Spanish language in a very, I guess, not so Spanish speaking, but still spoke the language. I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, I call it a very Rosetta Stone type of Spanish.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
not necessarily
Yeah.
translates
Yeah.
to what Spanish is.
Yeah.
Um,
It's as proper as proper could be in terms of it. But like,
yeah.
yeah.
And so oftentimes, he would translate for me things at certain classes that I'll be like, I have no idea what you just said to me. No idea. It was in my language, but I have no idea what you just said to me. Um, and oftentimes I would just sit there and try to be like, oh, okay, yeah. And in the back of my head be like, no, I got absolutely nothing of what you just said. Nothing. Um, and then I went through a time period as well that while I was learning English, I was learning new words that I didn't necessarily knew how to use. And I remember still up to this day, 20 years later, sitting in middle school. My middle school loved drama club and performances like that in auditoriums. And I remember very vividly, um, in the school play, the principal always liked to highlight the certain cliques: soccer club, football club, gymnastics, hip hop dancers, uh, you name it. We had those cliques,
Sure.
and the gymnastics girls went up on stage, and I remember very, you know, picturestic in my head. This really tall girl in my grade, and for us in Spanish, we say grande when somebody's tall. Well, grande in English can translate to very different things, right?
Yeah.
Big, huge,
Yeah.
tall, whatever.
Yeah.
The only word that came to mind in that moment for me, and us Colombians are very descriptive. We see somebody that's tall, and they're like, "Oh wow, wow, that person's really tall." Maybe sometimes we should keep those thoughts to ourselves. And as you transition into a different culture, at the time, I'm sitting there with my group of friends, and there were some girls, there were some guys, and there comes, stubborn Diego, not knowing how to keep his mouth shut at the time, and 13-year-old Diego shouts out, "Wow, that girl's huge!" Instead of saying, "Wow, that girl's tall."
Yeah.
And oh man, I picked up so much hate from that moment. All these girls are like, "Wow, that kid's an asshole."
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
wow, Colombians are dickheads, kind of thing. And I'm like, no, she's huge, she's huge. And they're like, "Dude, shut up! Don't say that." And I'm like, "What? She's huge. I'm little. She's huge." And they're like, "Are you meaning a different thing?" I'm like, "No, I mean that she's huge." And they're like, no, huge is somebody like big size.
Yeah.
And I was like,
different
"Oh,"
dimensions.
I was like, "Oh, no, she's like a pencil, but she's huge." And they're like, "Oh my God, Diego, shut up. You mean tall? Oh, what is that?" There comes me like, "Oh, what is that?"
Yeah.
They're like, "Tall is somebody,
Yeah.
in height." And I was like, "Oh, so what was I saying?" And
Yeah.
the two
You
other
basically
friends,
called her
the two
fat.
other,
Yeah.
the two other friends aside of me, they're like, "Dude, you were calling her fat, ugly."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, no wonder these girls don't want to talk to me anymore."
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
trying to socialize with everybody. Yeah, that was definitely a moment that stuck out to me like a sore thumb.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yeah. It's fun to look at now, and at those moments though they're terrifying
Oof.
because you're like, at that point you're just trying to fit in, and like maybe talk to a girl or whatever. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
that's funny.
And
man.
that was 2 weeks away from from the summer send off. So our school used to do like, the dances and all that stuff, and the dance was coming. Everybody was like being partnered up with a person to dance for the rest of the night. Nobody wanted to partner up with me. Nobody. It was like, no, like f that dude.
Yeah.
He's a jerk. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he called Gina huge. I was like, I'm not going, guys. I'm gonna be at home with my mom washing
Yeah.
the dishes
Yeah,
instead.
yeah.
Yeah.
Something's come up. Maybe the next
Yeah.
one. Maybe the next one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Then you're happy for the summer to come.
Yeah, yeah. That was
Hopefully
one of the
everybody
most awkward
forgets. But
moments.
yeah. Oh yeah. That's funny, bro. Now, when you came here, you were saying that you had just overcome leukemia.
Mhm.
All right. What was that process like for you, like going through that? Because I know you had told me a little bit when we first met.
Yeah, it was really tough, really tough. I saw my mom struggle pretty hard in all aspects, emotionally, financially. You know, you can only imagine. You're a parent, so you can only imagine seeing your kid struggle physically and health wise to try to overcome something that they don't even know where it's hitting them from, right? Um, so I saw my mom struggle a lot. I saw my brother and my little sister as well, kind of emotionally being dragged down too, by what I was going through, and not understanding, why is he changing so much in less than 24 hours, right? They saw me lose my hair. They saw me go from being a nice little chubby 13-year-old kid to like suddenly being like extremely thin, and your eyes back and pretty deep in, and having a huge black kind of aura to your eyes. Um, so I saw my whole family struggle, but then I also saw a lot of positivity behind that. I saw my family come even more together. Everybody wanted to pitch in and help, whether it was my aunt doing my bed, or whether it was my grandma cooking for the rest of us, or whatever it was. So those are moments that I look back into, um, and I say, wow, I've come so far. How do I thank my family for those moments in what I'm doing? And I've been blessed enough to be able to really put our family's name up top in the city, be able to be recognized, and you know, give them something to be proud about. Yeah.
Right. Now, what's what's a connection you've made in the city outside of your family that you think is one you didn't expect but has become, like, for me, when you were mentioning Big O, I'm like, I feel like Big O has been such a crucial part for anybody who starts to
Hmm.
DJ on the boats with him.
Um, for me, there was there are three connections, honestly, because um, you know part of what makes me me is going back to those moments. Knowing what my struggles were, knowing where I came from, understanding where I came from, and keeping that intact. So by that I mean being able to be humble, being able to be respectful, um, and being able to understand that maybe not every setting I fit in, and being okay with that. And for me, there are three major connections that have helped me kind of elevate my name in the city. First and foremost, DJ Big O as well. I used to listen to him in the radio. I've seen him, I've seen him DJ before, in the city. At the time I was DJing small little bars, in small towns, and trying to like acclimate to the nightlife, but it wasn't big in the city at all. Um, and so I used to be able to watch him DJ at places like Cure on a Sunday. You know, there's me trying to fit into the crowd on a Sunday. Um, Being able to see other DJs as well, being catering to different vibes. So I used to look out to the DJs out in Taboo and Saugus. That's a very well known name here in Boston. So DJ Big O was a huge connection for me. DJ Rico Suave as well, very humble and down to earth type of guy. And DJ Cisco as well. DJ Cisco has made a huge name for himself here in the city. He's somebody that's highly respected and um, very well followed as well. and we connected in that sense as well. He knows where he comes from. He's from very humble beginnings as well. He's never forgotten that, and that's where him and I were able to connect very strongly. He cares about his culture, being able to be high energy as well. Um, and those are connections that for me are so important. And if I was just to be stuck here, just to Boston or maybe the U.S., or if I was to go globally, like those are things you just never forget. Much like your humble beginnings.
Right.
You know,
What was the first interaction with each of them?
my very first interaction was with DJ Big O. Um, how it was he was looking for somebody as an opener for a Fourth of July public cruise on the Spirit of Boston, and I said to him, let's give it a try. I don't want you to pay me. I don't want you to do anything. Let's give it a try. Let's see how it goes. Goes, how Big O is. He's like, no. Like, if you're working with me, I'm gonna take care of you. I'll guide you. I'll give you pointers. If you're screwing up, like, don't worry. I got you. We'll work together. Um, and it was like that. When met him in person, I was nervous as hell because, he's made a name for himself. He's done a phenomenal job. And I was nervous as hell. I remember, he shook my hand. He was like, "It's not even that hot, dude. Why are you so sweaty?" And I was like, "Oh, this dude really just called me out. Like, the very first thing we're doing is we're calling me out." And I was like, "Not gonna lie, man. I'm nervous. I feel like I could throw up right now." Yeah. I looked at him, and I think he remembers this. And if he's watching this, he's probably chuckling like crazy on the other side of the screen.
Oh, they should have cut this up and posted.
Yeah. And then leading on from that, he liked what I did, and he gave me some pointers, kind of educated me on some things, what to do differently. And I appreciated that because there's not a lot of people that are willing to give you constructive feedback. A lot of times, a lot of people like to criticize and not kind of guide you. And I appreciate that out of Big O. It spoke volumes to me that somebody that barely even knows me wants to help me.
Yeah.
Right. So
And I feel like everybody has that kind of story with him. Yeah.
Yeah, so he guided me through that, and he kept putting me on, and he was like, "Yo, I'm organizing another big event on the Spirit of Boston. I'm gonna have a different lineup, but I want you to be part of it."
Nice.
I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." The event was getting closer and closer and closer, and then he finally told me who the DJs were, and it was myself, DJ Rico Suave, DJ Big O, and a couple other DJs, and very first interaction with Rico Suave was, I went out and looked at what he did. I was like, oh wow, like this dude plays pretty cool. Like he can cater to any format. I was like, oh man, I can't wait to rock with him. Well, the day came in to rock with him, and very first interaction is where we're switching off on a controller, right? If you're a DJ at DDJSZ, you know exactly what it is, port A and B. He's connecting to his port, and I'm soon to come off. He tells me he's ready, so I was so nervous in that moment that the only thought that came to mind was, okay, he's ready, like unplug, let him play. Well, he didn't have any music ready, right? So he was ready in the terms of like he's plugged and his computer is loading, but he wasn't ready to like drop any kind of track or anything. There is nervous me being driven by all my emotions. I had the crowd going and everything. There's a big Latino crowd, even though it's not a Latino event whatsoever. And I unplug, and the music goes completely silent.
Oh, those little words.
Thankfully for me, DJ Big O was on the mic. So, he immediately bounced on the mic. He picked up on the moment. Was kind of like, making it funny. Like, oh, whoa, like, what happened? Somebody get a little too excited, whatever. The crowd reacted, laughing, whatever. I look at Rico, and Rico's, like, ready to kill me. And I look at myself. I'm like, can I, like, dive off the boat? So, yeah. That was one of the very first interactions that we had. And, I've been fortunate enough to be able to work with him often, and every now and then I remind him, and he just like laughs. He's like, "Dude, what were you thinking at that moment?" I was like, "I don't think I was thinking at
I
all."
was like, all right,
Yeah.
here you go.
Yeah, and then from there blossomed to a good connection with him, good friendship. We've been able to work a couple of events together, like I said. Um, Go and support his nights as well. He's put out a lot of events where whether it's an open format crowd, whether it's a cultural driven crowd. Um, Again, another highly respected name in the industry. And then with Cisco, my very first interaction actually was through the pandemic. I was focusing on really building my craft a little bit deeper. So during the pandemic, I was focusing on doing Twitch streams and
Okay.
going on Instagram, going on Facebook, and kind of catering a little vibe here and there. We're at a time where we're all stuck at home doing nothing and kind of wondering what to do, right? So when you logged into social media and you saw like, oh, he's playing music, like, okay, put it in the background. We'll dance with the family here, whatever. And at the time I was building up on how to use my voice to cater through the mic, because not everybody knows how to cater a high energy on the mic. And that was my big thing. I wanted to develop a voice that catered high energy and amped up the crowd on the mic. And so, little did I know, he was watching my stream. I didn't even know he was watching my stream. I knew who he was. I knew what he's been able to do or whatever. I didn't know he was watching my stream until the next day. I checked my Facebook and there's a message from him saying, "Loved your energy. Watch the stream fully. We gotta work at some point."
Nice.
I read that thing and I will not even lie to you. I cried. I cried at that moment. That's when I said, "Holy shit, can the pandemic be over?" This dude just gave me even more energy than I wanted. Like,
Mhm.
you know, I was questioning myself because I was like, I'm behind the screen. I don't know if these people are really people.
Mhm.
Are they bots? Are they, are they
Mhm,
just
mhm.
fake names like trying to watch my thing? And then having somebody of his stature like come and message you privately without any connections, ever speaking or anything, and say that to you, you know that the type of person that is.
Right.
That's a person that's seen his highs, his lows, being able to eat it all together, and want to help somebody else. Never ask for any of that help, but I will never not say that I'm not thankful for it,
Right.
because I am. And now we've been able to do a few events together, and every single time his energy is just so contagious. It makes you wanna do more.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how I've connected with each and every one of them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. So Big O was just like, "Yo, sweaty palms, what's up?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Then Rico Suave was like, "All right, I'm ready."
Yeah, DJ Big O was sweaty palms. Rico Suave was, this dude's about to fuck up, and DJ Cisco was like, don't know who this kid is, but hey, let's work. Yeah,
He's good.
yeah.
He's good. Yeah. So I mean, two of the three were learning lessons.
Yep, yep. Every single thing in my life has been a learning lesson. There is not a question in mine at all.
Right.
So.
Right. So what is like when you look at DJing, I find I heard someone explain it like this on social media. So this is kind of, I don't know where I'm going with it, but this is what just came to mind. So I wanted to share it. Is like when you look at DJing, a lot of people think you're just pushing buttons, but the way the guy explained it on social media was like, think about playing Tetris on the hardest level for 4 hours. So when you're saying you have these like butterfly moments that mess the moment up,
Yeah.
like it's because it's such an intense. Every single song has to hit or do something for the party. So when you're saying I had these fuck ups, I'm like, yo, bro, I've been there. I get it. I
Yeah.
definitely get it.
Yeah.
Now, if someone is trying to do something similar to you, because like I know we're getting close to the 1 hour, so I won't keep you too long.
No worries. Okay.
But if someone is trying to duplicate your type of success, right? How do they go about connecting with people that they look up to, right? So you get those initial conversations with them. Like, how would you advise someone to go about reaching out to expand their like DJ career?
Definitely start first and foremost by educating yourself. In today's hyper social media world that we live in. We're very driven by following social media personalities, but not understanding that there's a personality behind that social media profile that you're so driven into. It's important to really educate yourself into who you want to learn from, because if you don't educate yourself, a lot of the times it does happen where a certain influencer in social media that you are like, oh my god, I really want to connect with that person, might not even fit in your style, and you might run into some disappointments in that aspect. So that's first and foremost. The second thing of going to connect with somebody is, don't go with high expectations, right? So there's always been a saying that I heard. I can't even remember what the movie is, but it always stuck to me when it came to this world, especially. Um, be disappointed, and you'll never feel disappointment in your life. And what does that what does that mean? Go with really low expectations and don't expect anything at all out of that interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Let that interaction drive your emotions afterwards. Whether it's like, oh my god, like this was something I desperately like needed and opened my eyes, or whether like, oh, maybe that person is not who I want to connect with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So definitely, utilize that in the back of your mind. And last but not least, don't be that person that is filling up the DMs of these people. Don't be that person. And the reason I say that is because a lot of you never understand like the type of time management that these people are under, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of pressure that goes behind some of these big names that are working gigantic events and that are moving day in and day out and might not even be well rested at all. Um, so the best thing that you could do is try to find time within your own time to be able to go out and actually see them in action. Go and network. Um, Networking is one of those things that is such a lost trade
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
today's DJing world that
It's the main reason I started this.
yeah, it's one of those things that I personally, and I think that when we met at the DJ meetup, I said to you, I'm so glad that you came, because first of all, I would have never known
You were the best, bro.
who you were.
we shot the shit
No,
on that stage
I
for a good
appreciate
minute,
that.
bro. Yeah, it
No,
was
no,
such
no.
a good vibe.
And I appreciate that because if there is one thing that I want to leave as a legacy is being able to help people get through that door. I want to be somebody that opens the door and makes them feel welcome. Whether you're a female DJ, whether you're just a regular DJ just trying to blend in, or whether you're trying to start something new. I want to be able to help people because I know what that feeling has always been like of feeling the need of wanting somebody to help you. So I've been in those shoes. I'm very cognizant of the connections that I've been able to make, but I've been very cognizant of the work that I put into that as well. Um, you know, previously I had a time period where I was out every night, and it wasn't because I'm necessarily a party mindset. It was because it was so important for me to understand the different pockets of music that compile in the city and that make it the city that it is today.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's the EDM, nightlife, whether it's the Latino nightlife, whether it's the reggae dancehall nightlife, no matter what it is, it's so important for me to connect with all these people because then, again, if I'm in a room of 10 people, 1,000 people, and it's all these different cultures, how do I utilize those moments that I went out and picked up on that
Mm-hmm.
education
Mm-hmm.
into my 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour set? Um, so again, somebody that's trying to get into the nightlife type of things or want to replicate what I've been doing, those three aspects are the most important aspects of everything else. And last but not least, be you. Be unapologetically yourself. Don't duplicate any type of personality. Don't be the personality of your favorite artist. Be you. Like I started at the beginning of this, Episode is authenticity, something that the general crowd is craving because we have a lot of duplicates in today's world.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be duplicated. You need to be you, uh, and you know you might fit in a lot of pockets. You might not fit in a lot of other pockets, and that's fine. That's completely fine because there's no standard as to who you need to be. The only standard is who you want to be.
Right.
Uh, and so those are the four things that I would say to somebody that's trying to get into this world, duplicate what I have or what I've been able to do, and make it better for yourself. And always, that's the last thing that I would say. Always aim to be better. Don't be aiming to be the same as that person that you want to be. Be better. Absolutely better.
Right. Right. There's something healthy to being in the room around other DJs and listening to them spin and learning the environments, even though you're not necessarily behind the deck.
Mhm.
You know, because I don't know about you, I find that I'll get tied up in the moment of thinking how good I am at reading a room until I go hear another DJ and I'm like, oh, I would have never played that there. I would have never done that there. And now all of a sudden you have more things in your bag to go back to your set
Mhm.
with.
Mhm.
You know, so as you're saying these different ways of like, go out there, learn the craft. Don't go about blowing up their their DMs. Like go out there and network and be yourself. So like taking these proper steps. Now, this is usually my favorite question to ask, but I feel like you kind of answered it already, so it might just be you elaborate on it.
Sure.
But if you could only take one lesson in everything that you've done, right? Like in all the years that you've been DJing, you went through your childhood, the struggles you had. You could only take one lesson with you, forget everything else, go back to the very beginning of when you started, and you have to use that one lesson to get yourself back to where you are today. What's that lesson?
Remember where I came from. It's definitely that that one really good component that reignites everything back in place. Whether you're thriving, whether you're at your lowest lows, um, being able to remember who you are, where you came from, um, and the very first thing that you need to do is practice radical acceptance. What is that? Accepting the moment for what it is, and knowing that either you can improve, or you're maybe at the lowest lows at that moment, and being okay with that, because that's one of those things that uh, it's not often talked about in this industry, but it's very common that your regular every night DJ is having some sort of depression on their end.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I for myself, I'm really not afraid to speak up on this, and I spoke about it 2 years ago when I hit a major rock bottom moment in my life. I was highly depressed. I was not happy. Um, it showed through all my sets. It showed in my personality, um, and I knew I needed to do something about it. I knew I needed to change, needed to stop with getting myself into a deeper hole of things. I had gotten into terrible arguments with my group of friends that had always been there. I was drinking a lot. Um, it was just really a dark moment of my life. But I knew that if I didn't accept the moment for what it was, I was never gonna find a solution for it. So I knew that I needed to step away for a little bit, kind of lower my workload and repurpose myself, know where I came from. Um, and one thing of me that I realized at that moment that I was forgetting was that I came from very humble beginnings, and I was starting to become an arrogant, nasty person that I didn't need to be. And that's not what people wanted to follow. They wanted to follow who I am. They wanted to know who I was, and they wanted to be around who I was.
Mm.
They didn't want to be around this person that was trying to become something that they're not. Um, and it was a really important moment, and um, I think I thank a lot of the people that were around me at the moment, but there were two people that definitely saw me battle it out physically and emotionally at that moment, and that was my mom, who, through all these things that I've gone through, like, You know, her relationship and my relationship with her are very different. It's not a negative or a positive relationship, but it's very at times very transactional. You know, she's a mom, so she's always like, "Oh, honey, like I don't want you around that world too much," because there's the general conception of our world that oh, it's sex, drugs, and alcohol when it's not.
I mean,
It
you
can
can
be.
get there.
It
You
can
can
be.
get there.
Yeah.
But I think for the most DJs, it's not really.
No,
It's
if you have
not.
self composure and you know
Yeah.
exactly what you're looking to get out of this world, it's not. If you're just looking to dive into the regular pop culture of this world, oh, that takes seconds
Yeah.
to dive into it.
Yeah.
Um, and there's me being that person of like, Mom, you're not seeing the world that I'm seeing, right? And so it's two different mindsets there, but somehow, some way, we managed to come together at that moment and be able to, she was a huge rock for me. She saw me struggle like crazy again with my health. I was having panic attacks, I was having asthma attacks. I came very close to having a heart attack myself. So um, she's found me unconscious in my living room because I passed out after having a major depressive attack. And the other person that I am super grateful for as well is my manager, promoter, and my best friend right now, my friend Lucho, who also saw me, you know, have panic moments where deep cries, not being able to get the words out or anything, um, feeling angry. Moments that a lot of DJs are not willing to admit that they've experienced those moments, and they're not willing to admit because there is uh, the social. I don't know how to put it together, but there's that social mindset that if you're a DJ, everything is, you know, pop champagne and good shit at all moments. Not really. The darkest moment that a DJ experiences on a regular day basis is you rock the crowd. But guess what? When all the lights are off and all the equipment is off, it's just you and yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you have a significant person there with you that's accompanying you throughout the night, it's just you. You, yourself, and you. Um, some people love it, some people not so much. So it's important to be able to, like I said, accept the moments, be able to recognize where you came from, and be willing to know that at times it's good to take a step back so that you can move forward a whole mile ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I I agree, and I think it's a mental struggle that I don't know if it's just because we have a persona we got to keep up, that people try to
Mm-hmm.
kind of suppress it,
Mm-hmm.
but I relate a lot to what you said about once the room clears, you've been on this high for 4 hours, like, and you can't explain it unless you've done it. Like no matter how much you
Mm-hmm.
explain it, there's the rush of controlling a crowd song
Oh
by
yeah.
song for hours at a time, and then lights out. You go back to your car by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You sit in the car and you're reflecting on the moment, but you're sad it's over. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can, if you want to make it easier for you to think about it, especially if you're watching this, if you're listening or whatever, think of it as your favorite artist. They'll go through their very peak moment where they're thriving. Everybody wants to get with them. Everybody wants to go to their concerts, buy the VIP experience, go behind cameras and, whatever. But guess what? At the end of that concert, when they're trying to rush out through all the paparazzi and all that stuff, they're by themselves. They have nobody else there with them. They're by themselves or more likely rushing to the next event. They don't even have a moment for themselves. And then when they disappear from that moment, guess what? They're looking for their followers. Their followers are not there.
Hmm.
That's one of the darkest moments that in the music industry we all experience.
Yeah. Yeah. It's humbling. It definitely
Yep.
reminds you how people love you for the image of who you are versus who you are,
Mhm.
because they don't really know you that aspect. So now, for yourself, as we're like wrapping up here, like what would you say is your favorite like motivational thing you've heard or you listen to that helps you kind of get out of your moment? Like, do you listen to audiobooks? Like, what do you like to do to get yourself out of a funk?
So, and maybe I should have mentioned this in the beginning of when you asked, what got you into DJing. Um, One of my biggest motivations, not just as a DJ, but also as a person, um, was a huge DJ and artist at the time, Avicii. I studied his life, who he was as a person, just even growing up, the type of people that he hung around, and if you are an avid Netflix documentary watcher like I am, you've seen his documentary, right? And it goes into detail and explains, he was just this really nerdy kid in the middle of the hills up in, wherever he grew up in, and he never wanted to be really deep into DJing. He wanted to produce music, but he wasn't much of like expecting to grow up and glow up the way that he did, right? And I assimilate to a lot of it myself. I wanted to dive into music because, in my family, my dad was the musician, so it kind of was in my blood. But I never expected to be like, oh, I'm booked almost every weekend, right? Um, and so,
Congrats on that, my guy.
thank you, thank you. And I don't even think of it that way. I look at it every week, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's Friday. Oh, wait a minute, I gotta work. I gotta work later on tonight. I gotta go out and have fun tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And there's times where if I'm not booked, I look at my phone or I message my girlfriend like, honey, what do you want to do tonight, right? Do you want to go out and eat? Do you want to go out and dance? What do you want to do? But again, just going back to what motivates me is knowing that um, I'm not alone in this. That my biggest inspirations as well in life, whether it's an artist, whether it's a historic figure, whether it's my own family, they've had their highs and lows, and that it's okay for me to have my high and low. Um, and how I make my life out of it is entirely up to me. I'm the driver of my life, and what I want to make out of it, it's entirely up to me. If I want to, sit there and be in my lowest lows, the choice is mine, right? But if I want to be at the lowest and go back to the highest, the choice is mine again. And another inspiration as well is, uh, you know, growing up in Colombia, I was always a Boston Red Sox fan, always was, and immigrating here and watching their 2004 comeback, after 104 years of not winning anything, going through hardships, I'm like, if they can do it and they had to put together a bunch of personalities and a bunch of no ones together at that moment, why can't I do it? Why can't I put a bunch of things that I maybe haven't used in place that maybe all gel together could be a huge phenomenal thing, or it could be just another huge major setback. Do it. What do I got to lose? The most dangerous person in the world is that person that has lost it all, has nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
That's always something that has also been in the back of my mind. So when I go through, again, highest of highest and lowest of lowest, those are motivational things that I look into. Yeah.
Nice. Now, as we wrap up here, how would people find you? Social media, like what's the best way to follow you, contact you? Like what do you prefer? What are your handles, I guess?
Yeah. Through social media, you can follow me on Instagram or on TikTok, Diego underscore the DJ 617. If you're looking to book me, you can see my content there. If you're just trying to get to know me a little bit as a person, I do put out a few things here and there about my life on Instagram. So you can follow me there.
Nice. All right. Diego, bro.
Man, thank you so much.
This was awesome, man.
Yeah.
But all right, peeps, I will put his social media on here. Other than that, talk to y'all later.